You may not have heard about all this in the past week because of all the noise or not noise from the DNC, but Pew Research got an unreal response in a poll which revealed something we all know. 73% of Americans think social media outlets censor their political views. Shocker. Many think that the number will be a little bit low. Let's dig deeper in this with our panel. Amber Athey is the Washington editor of The Spectator. Bobby Eberle is a Republican strategist and the host of the 13-minute news hour. Conservative talk about is being censored everywhere, Bobby. So I want to ask you real quick, have you experienced this yourself?
Yeah, that was what I was going to talk about. It happens to everybody. I mean, you hear the stories about Don Jr. getting nuked from Twitter and things like this. It happens to folks that are trying to get their voice out, that have the smaller audiences. It happens all the time. My videos on YouTube get flagged. I'll ask them because I'm not, cussing or profanity or going over the top or anything like that. Just getting the news out, just getting the word out to people. And yet they won't tell you why they did it. You ask them, they say consult the guidelines. I say I did. And then they say, well, we can't really tell you. It happens to people all over the place, and we see that it's really focused on conservatives, and that's a big deal when so many people are relying on big tech, on Google, on YouTube, on Facebook, to get their message out and to get the news. We see it all the time. It's a huge problem. Yeah, well, we got this poll up right now. Republicans say 90% because obviously Republicans, I mean, it's always a glitch, but the glitch always happens against Republicans. Democrats, though, almost 60%, and, U.S. adults, 73% averaged out. So, Amber, this is something that is pretty prominent in what we're seeing now, and it's affecting elections. You have people like Laura Loomer, who is the most banned woman in the world, who can't get on any social media platform except for Parler. You have people like Dan Bongino, whose YouTube videos get taken down and throttled back and all that stuff. What do we need to do to get our outlets back to fair?
Yeah, it's a great question, and there are several different ideas being floated by conservatives. Of course, you mentioned Parler. People have been saying for a long time that conservatives need to create an alternative platform where they're not going to be censored. And Bobby makes a really great point about the fact that this happens all the time to small accounts, and we just don't hear about it because they don't have the power to email Twitter, a Twitter spokesperson, and ask them for comment about their account getting shut down. If this can happen to the president, where they can put a flag on his tweet because he says he's going to apply force to protesters who are violent and rioting and looting, or they can flag a fact check on the president's tweet because he says that COVID does not affect children as much as adults, then yeah, they can absolutely do it to everyday Americans, and they are every single day.
Yeah, and this is pretty interesting. You talk about, so look, I'm on Parler. I got on there, and within like 2 days, I had like 10,000 followers because people are actively looking for other outs other than the big social media ones. I mean, look, I still use Twitter, I still use Facebook and Instagram, all those, because it's a mainstream platform. But you talked about all these glitches, and you talked about people being stifled. So, Bobby, when you have a number of people that are being withheld from platforms, look, John Jr. and I follow each other, but I've had to refollow him before. How do we fight that?
Well, we've got to keep it up because that's a great point. We see that all the time in my comments, and when we do live chat, people say, hey, guess what, Bobby, I made it because you're at a regular time, but I didn't get the notification. I turned them off, I turned them back on, I still don't get it. And it's so hard for these smaller outlets to grow. We've got the big folks, but as we get censored, the big folks get, hey, let's boycott them, let's pull sponsors. Sponsors are so left-wing, they're so afraid of Black Lives Matter and all of this woke mob mentality that they flinch and they pull their sponsorship. Smaller outlets, they just get nuked, and we don't have any recourse. Yes, we need to build up Parler, we need to build up other outlets, but that's going to be really hard without a massive investment, because as people are trying to get their shows out there, get better known across the media platforms, you're going to turn to the old standbys, the regular ones, and kind of just hope, cross your fingers, that today's show doesn't get blocked or all out removed. It's very frustrating, but as we work together, as Amber says, as we grow, as we look for these other outlets, we can do it. It just takes us all working together and a couple big investors to put those platforms out there, and people invest in it and say, hey, this is the way to go. I'm going to put some of my growth strategy in these, and let's see what happens.
Free market capitalism. What a concept.
Right.
Amber, you talked about fact checking. Now, there's been a number of times where President Trump has been, censored based on fact checking, which is, kind of hogwash. And they'll fact check him against something that the Chinese government says, and they'll let the Chinese government push their propaganda all they want. But then President Trump's tweet is blurred out and says, our fact checkers from the Huffington Post found this to be inaccurate.
Yeah, it's exactly right. They do this all the time. There's a Chinese foreign minister propagandist who is able to spread all kinds of fake news about the coronavirus. And yet Twitter is worried about, just this past week, banning satire accounts. They got rid of the Babylon Bee, Jarvis Dupont, Titania McGrath, all of these satire accounts that make fun of the left. They're apparently scarier to Twitter than Chinese propaganda or even the Democratic conspiracy theories about the U.S. Postal Service. Now, some of those counts were eventually recovered, but here's the thing. It never happens unless there's enough backlash, because Twitter will explain it away by saying that this was just a mistake, but it does seem like the mistakes only ever go in one direction.
Yeah, no, I totally agree here. So, we've seen this. We've seen the cancellation from people from Uber to even Chase Bank to all these things. It is getting a little out of control, folks. I've put some faith in Parler. I believe that's going to be my thing. No, I'm not receiving anything from them, but I think that could be an example of, hey, let's start the shift. Amber, Bobby, thank you very much for joining us. We appreciate it.
Okay, friends, thanks so much for watching. And before you go, please hit that subscribe button, hit that bell so you'll be notified. And here's a special video just for you so you can watch even more of the 13-minute news hour. And don't forget to check out GOPUSA.com for the best in conservative news and commentary. We'll see you next time.